Hello folks, welcome to Seeker Gaming. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I'm going to be showing you two tanks and they're both called the Gemini. This is just the Gemini right here, and this is the Gemini RTA. So this is a rebuildable. This one uses those cCell coils. So these are both from Vaporesso. Who, they came out with those cCell coils you might have heard of. They're ceramic on the inside, a little bit of cotton on the outside, but mostly ceramic. The coils are actually pretty nice. There's a few videos out there if you're concerned about the safety. They kind of go over the safety of them and the test that they ran. Long story short, they came back fine. There's nothing harmful in the ceramic coils getting into the vapor, into your lungs or anything like that. So both of these tanks, they're really similar in what they come with too. They all have like a 510 drip tip adapter and a 510 drip tip, and they both have this chuff style cap, which I really like. So let's start with a regular Gemini. This is the one with the cCell coil. So if you've ever used that Target tank, or the Target mod, the first one that Vaporesso came out with, this does have a little bit more airflow than that. So that one was kind of a flavor tank. A little bit less airflow, a little restricted. This one is still restricted compared to what I'm used to. Let's see, what can I compare it to? Maybe like the Atlantis 1. The airflow is very similar to the Atlantis 1. It also has top airflow. If you turn this little ring right up here, it opens up the airflow. Personally, I don't like top airflow. It does help a little bit, but it's not a huge difference. Something like the TFV4 or with the adjustable drip tip, it's not like that at all. It's just a little bit of a difference. You can also, let me put this close up in focus for you. Right about there, yeah. You can also turn this whole glass piece. You kind of hold it by the glass and turn it, and it closes off your juice flow, and then you can use that to refill. It's a top fill tank. So right here is where you'll go to refill it. You can see right down there. It's got the big, I don't want to drip on my keyboard. Yeah, kidney shaped, big fill holes. Threading's pretty good. That's my phone. And then you just turn the glass again, and it opens up the juice flow. Let me take this tank off, and I'll show you. Coil, it's pretty standard as far as coils go. You unscrew the bottom. And there's your coil. And you just replace it. Unscrew it, you put a new one in. If you look down in there, and there's kind of juice in there, but that's the ceramic coil. So that's about the size of the airflow. It's not terrible. It's not the best, but it's not terrible. If you're a cloud chaser and you like replacement coils, this is a good option. This threading is kind of weird. It gets bound up a little bit sometimes, like right there. You don't want to look at me blurry. That's annoying. So as usual, you just kind of back it out and then try to screw it back in. Oh man, it's usually not like this. Oh, why is it doing that? What am I doing wrong, Gemini? Tell me. Is it not even catching now? Ay, ay, ay. Yep, I'm not going to edit this out because this is something I have encountered with this tank. Now it's not even catching. Huh. There it goes, kinda. Yep, there we go. And there's still kind of a gap, but I mean, that's pretty much as good as it gets. So yeah, I'm not really sure what that's about. It might have something to do with the juice flow control, but I don't really know. I don't know why it does that. Yeah, see, that's still not in there right, because now when I turn the glass, it actually... Oh, no, there it goes. All right, so a little bit awkward there. So improvements to be made, and it does have, you know, the adjustable airflow ring right below that, like most tanks do. It doesn't stop, it keeps going. It's a free spinning adjustable airflow. As far as the vape goes, it's good. There's no spitback. There's no, I guess, like that turbulence, I guess you could say, with a lot of sub-ohm tanks that use cotton. It's a really smooth draw. The flavor's really good. And this coil in particular is the 0.8 ohm. It claims you can go up to 75 watts, so we'll try it. This is at 45 right now, and now it says no atomizer. And that's probably because it's not screwed in all the way. You know what? Screw it. At this point, I can't tell you if it's just this tank or if it's every tank that does that, but getting that coil in and getting the bottom screwed on has been kind of awkward. It's never been this bad, but I'm glad it was this bad on video so you can see like the worst of it. Worst comes to worst, you're gonna have to fiddle around and get that threading to go in correctly. So that's it for that one. That's the Gemini tank. This one is the Gemini RTA. If you've ever tried the Griffin tank from Geek Vape, this is very, very similar, but this one does have a few improvements. So I actually have a 20 gauge build in here with a 3mm diameter, and it works really well. So if you like bigger builds, this will work just fine. I didn't really feel like putting a Clapton in there, but 20 gauge usually has the same kind of space requirements as Clapton does, so I figured I'd put the 20 gauge in there and see if it worked, and it does. It's close. But with Claptons and stuff like that, you should safely be able to build a 3mm diameter coil. Make sure the juice flow is open. This is actually at 100 watts. It's a 0.14 ohm dual coil. Now this tank, I really do like. So if you look at it, it looks very similar to the one I just had on there. Key difference, right? No, maybe not a key difference. One difference is that the airflow does stop. It stops all the way open, it stops all the way closed, and it's really easy to turn. So now it's all the way open. The juice flow control is really loose. Really, really loose. Minor problem. I wish that was tightened up a little bit, and it's so loose, in fact, that you can kind of feel it wobble back and forth. And I thought that was the 510 connection at first. It's not. It's the actual top part of the tank that moves, and it's that juice flow control. And I guess that's a positive and a negative, really. I mean, it moves really easily, but on the other hand, it kind of wobbles. You don't really notice it when you're vaping, but if you're have a lot of attention to detail, that might be something that bothers you. The airflow is really good, and I'll take it apart and show you why it's so good. It's actually better than the Griffin. And it does have a 510 drip tip adapter, a chuff style cap, and top airflow that I don't use. So let me take this apart for you. I'm going to hold it upside down and let the juice drain a little bit. There's a little bit more space between the chimney and the glass than there is with the Griffin. So if you've ever tried to turn the Griffin upside down and rebuild or something like that, you notice that it takes pretty much forever for that juice to come down because there's like very little space in between the glass and the chimney. This one's a little bit different. You have a little bit more space there. So now you can see the juice is away from the holes now. So let me zoom in and focus and take it apart. So there's your build deck. So you got a velocity style deck. I want to hold it closer. Let me zoom in more. Focus more. That's what I meant to say. So you got two kind of airflow holes at the bottom that are really big on both sides. It has that same adjustable ring, which at the moment is kind of coming loose. So no, it's not. It's not coming loose. And it's almost exactly, it's literally exactly the same build that you would put on a Griffin RTA. Now, if you see that middle post, you're probably wondering, now, what is that? That kind of confused me at first too. And that is not another terminal. That's actually additional airflow. So you can't really see down in there because I have my coils in the way, but there's two holes in that post, one right on top of the other, and that's additional airflow. So it's actually getting your coil from the bottom and from the side, and it actually does make a difference as far as how much airflow you get. This one feels a lot like an RTA. It really does. So you also have, you know, like I said, your velocity style deck right there, and A problem that I've had, and it's not just this tank by any means, is that the what's it called? The Allen key that you get with it is a little bit too small, so I end up stripping my screws. Now, to be fair, I am using 20 gauge. So when you're using 20 gauge, you really have to crank down on the leads. Otherwise, they kind of come loose. So I really need to get in there and like put a lot of strength into turning those screws. Two of them were fine. Two of them took the torque just fine. The other two started to strip. So I'm not sure if I'm getting the best conductivity right now, but that was an issue I had. But I don't think many people are going to put 20 gauge into a tank. So if you're using something like 24 gauge or even Claptons with smaller wires, then you should be just fine with the Allen key that they give you. But that's the build deck. So when you build it, you kind of just, put your coils in there. You don't even really need to center them. You just even them up a little bit. And the best way I found to wick it if you're going to use it at high wattages is like you can see right there. Just cotton kind of resting on those holes. I didn't even really tuck them in like I do with the Griffin. I wanted it to wick really well, and I wasn't really concerned about leaking, but I've had this in my bag for a few days, and it hasn't leaked on me. So they did get pushed out of place because I put the, when you screw it on, it kind of pushes your cotton around. So I'm just going to kind of push them back and out of the way just to make sure. Strawberries and cream, yummy. So that's pretty much it for the deck. It's a super easy build. You can fit, that's probably as big as you want to get. I mean, that's really close to the edge. So if you're going to do Claptons, good news is you could put in diameters as big as 3 millimeters. Or if you're using 20 gauge, if you start using 24 gauge or smaller, maybe even 20 gauge, I haven't tried it with 20 gauge or 22 gauge, then you could probably fit a 3.5 millimeter, but that's probably the extent of it. All right, so let me put it back on the mod. I'm going to need to fill this. I'll show you how to fill it too, even though it's top fill. It's really easy. All right, so the juice flow holes. This is another improvement, I think, over the Griffin. The Griffin had round juice flow holes, and these are kind of oblong shaped. So what happened to me with the Griffin is when you're using thick liquid, those round holes really aren't big enough, and you kind of get a bubble like stuck in there. So these help with that situation quite a bit. The only issue I have is you can't get all of them all the way open perfectly. No matter, it's going to be hard to show you on camera, especially with all the juice bubbles I got going on. But you have to line them up just right, and you can kind of see it right there. How close can I get and still focus? All right, so you see right there, within the juice flow hole, you can still see part of the metal on the left side. Yeah, that's because you have to line it up perfectly. And even if you line it up perfectly, like that, you can always see a little bit of metal. Pretty much always. Right there. Now you see it on that side? Moving it over. Now it's closed, but then... Yep, there's the metal. So you're going to see a little bit of metal. I don't know why. They maybe should have made those juice flow channels a little bit bigger, but it's not a big deal. You line it up as best you can, and it wicks just fine. So let me close that off. I'm going to take the top off here. And it's the same kind of fill system. It's got the giant holes, so no matter what kind of bottle you have, it'll fill just fine. I'm not even going to fill it up all the way. It holds about the same as the Griffin, maybe a little bit more because of that smaller chimney. So I would say 3.5 to 4 mils, somewhere in there. But the way I have this built at 100 watts, you kind of drink liquid. Let's open up the juice flow, open up the airflow. And I opened up that top airflow a little bit by accident. Let's close that. So with that center post that has the airflow in it, you get quite a bit of airflow. I mean, it's really is RTA-like. Now, it's not going to be chuff cap, airflow wide open, no resistance. It's not that kind of airflow. There is a little bit of resistance, but what I have been using, my kind of old reliable, is a velocity clone here. And I use this with the side airflow all the way open, but the tiny holes closed. And it's really similar to that. In fact, it's almost exactly the same as that. So that's about the kind of airflow you can expect. The flavor is actually surprisingly good. It's a little bit muted, little bit, but not bad. Um, the vapor production is great. Um, I really can't say anything terrible about this tank. I was using the Griffin for a while, so if you're a fan of the Griffin, this is definitely another option for you to look at. You got the bigger juice flow holes for thicker liquid. It does kind of wobble back and forth, which might bother you. And again, this is a sample. I'm not sure if every single one is like that. Mine's like that, so I'm telling you about it. And you do have top airflow now, which I don't use, so that doesn't really affect me at all. But even with those closed, that additional airflow in the base is really nice. I kind of like it. So with a Clapton or with 20 gauge or something like that, you can rock 100 watts or more on it. I like 100 watts. It's just fine. It's warm enough. I can take full drags without worrying about burning. It keeps up just fine with the wicking. So I really can't complain. The one thing I will say about the wicking though, if you're going to use thick liquid and or high wattage type builds like that, make sure it's like barely wick. Don't stuff wick in there. You know, leave, not, I wouldn't say leave space. Keep the cotton loose and don't really tuck it down in and like really tuck it down. You can kind of push it down into those holes to the point where they don't spew out anymore. Just kind of, you know, push them into shape, but they really should just be resting in that hole. And that way it gives plenty of room for the VG heavy liquid to kind of wick better. And I could pretty much chain vape this now. And I was kind of afraid that it was wicked too loose. I mean, there's a fine line between having it wick well and having it leak, because there's so much space in here because of that airflow that there's not as much air pressure as something like a K-Fun to keep the juice in. So let me chain vape this at 100 watts and see what happens. That one was a little dry. So on the third one, 100 watts, that third drag was a little bit dry. Now it's going to need time to wick. That's fine. I rarely take more than 3 drags in a row when I'm chain vaping. Usually it's 1 or 2. For a tank, I would say that's perfectly acceptable. I got no issues with that. So I actually really like it. I would pick this over the Griffin. Unfortunately, I don't have any kind of pricing or what it's going to cost. It is Vaporesso. Usually the prices aren't ridiculous. I would expect it to be in the same price range as the Griffin. So if you're looking at both, I would pick this over the Griffin if you'd like more airflow, and I would pick the Griffin if you want a little bit tighter machining, not better machining. The machining's about equal, but if you want everything a little bit tighter and eliminate that wobble, and again, you only notice it when you actually go on here and do that. Even doing that, you don't notice it. Doing that, you don't notice it. When it's in your mouth, you don't notice it. But if it's going to be in the back of your head and bother you, then the Griffin might be a better option. That's pretty much it. It's a really nice tank. It's probably my favorite RTA to date. So my favorite RTA used to be the Billow V2, and then it was the, what was it called? The Mutation MT, and then the Mutank. They came out like a week apart, and the Mutank is basically an MT, but you can put replaceable coils in there if you want to, and the rebuilding deck is the same, whatever. So that was my favorite, and then it was the Griffin, and now it's this. So I'm really glad that RTAs are kind of stepping it up, and it's kind of strange. You know, if you wanted a lot of airflow, like probably even just a year ago, you needed to use a dripper, but then they had, you know, the Atlantis and so on and so forth. They kind of was like, hey, now we have a tank that hits like a dripper, and it's like, well, not really. It's close, but it's still not a dripper. So rebuildable tanks kind of had to catch up to like subohm style tanks, and I don't know why it took this long, but it seems to finally be getting there to where it has, you know, that kind of airflow and that kind of wicking capability, so where it can have the flavor and your customized performance like a rebuildable, but have the airflow of those subohm tanks like the Atlantis 2, the Triton, the TFV4, and so on and so forth. So yeah, if I had to pick a tank right now, then this would probably be it. I actually really like it. As for the other one, the regular Gemini, I would wait for reviews before you pick this up, just to see if anyone else has problems with the machining like I do. It seems to be getting cross-threaded or something, but I don't know. It's just awkward. You saw what was happening. It was getting cross-threaded and binding up, and then it wasn't catching at all. And then it kind of worked, but now it's not making a connection because there's that gap and the coil isn't touching the pin. It's just weird. Those cCell coils are nice, but I don't know. It's tough. I wish, you know, if this tank actually worked, this would probably be one of the better sub-ohm tanks for flavor. And, you know, these coils, too, apparently you can dry burn them because they're ceramic and stuff like that. So the coils are pretty good, and they're pretty popular. I know there's a lot of people talking about them. Hey. Sorry, cat. So, yeah, if you're interested in the ceramic coils, then this might be a tank worth picking up over the tank they already have out if you like more airflow. Something like a... Hey! How many times I gotta say it? Stop. Sorry, we're moving. We have a bunch of boxes, and the cats are just having a field day with them. What was I saying? Yes, the cCell coils. This has more airflow than their other tank with the cCell coils. I think it's called the Target tank, but I could be wrong. I know the mod was called the Target, and it all came with a kit. Whatever. That tank is more of a flavor tank with restricted airflow. This has more open airflow, and if they could just correct that machining, or maybe it was just me, then this would be probably my go-to option for a sub-ohm tank. But as of right now, I can't really... He doesn't remember me yelling at him 2 seconds ago. As for the Gemini RTA, I think it's definitely worth a pickup. We'll do one more vape on it. Two more vapes. I see you. I'm not being sneaky. So that's it. That is the Gemini sub-ohm tank and the Gemini RTA. They're two tanks that look almost identical. Almost identical. And they're pretty good performers. I would give this, if I could get it screwed together, as far as sub-ohm tanks go, I would give it an 8 out of 10. This, I would give a 9 out of 10. I generally don't give 10 out of 10s because to me 10 out of 10 means that it's like the best thing since sliced bread. There's always room for improvement on everything that I've used. I'm just going to go ahead and put my velocity back on here. Let's make sure I got some juice. I do not. And we'll do the closing vape. So that is it for the review. Now, the shameless plugging. Please follow on Twitch and Twitter, like on Facebook, and subscribe right down here on YouTube below the microphone. There's a subscribe button. If you click that, you'll get notified weekly or whenever I upload a video, and you go to your subscriptions on YouTube, I'll be on the list. You can easily find my new videos. If you'd also like to help support the stream, you can subscribe through Patreon. There'll be a link in the description. And yeah, please follow me on Twitch as well. If you like gaming and you like vaping, I vape a lot and I play lots of games, and I do it 5 days a week. So check me out there too. It's a lot of fun. If you got some free time in the evenings, that's where I'll be. Always Friday and Saturday, and then another 3 random weekdays. I take Sunday off and I take a weekday off from doing that, but 5 days a week, I'll be there. It's a lot of fun. So thanks for watching. One more vape. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll see you next time on Secret Gaming.